Hello out there in cryptocurrency land. How's everybody doing today or tonight or whatever time it is wherever you are? How you doing? So I'm doing pretty good. Interesting day today. Not too much happening. We've been following the channel. We've been talking about tops overall in the market, and I don't do too many just general Bitcoin videos. Um, I've done one on Bitcoin and Ethereum. This is going to be another one on Bitcoin and Ethereum. I don't think you can just take Bitcoin into account. I think you have to count Ethereum as well. They're both market leaders. Bitcoin kind of leads the overall market, but Ethereum is like the leader of the altcoins. So I really think you have to take Ethereum into the account. So are we done with this market move up for now? Are we done with this move to the downside that we've been in for the past week or so? What does the future hold? Well, I'm going to get up my crystal ball. Oh crap, I just grabbed it and it broke. Damn it. Okay, so I don't have a crystal ball anymore. So I don't know what's going to happen, I'll be honest with you. I'm not trying to steer you in one way or another through this talk, but I do want to show you what the charts have been telling me and what we've been talking about in the chat rooms and just some of the different news related items that could possibly cause us to go down or up. Down or up. So let's start off with Bitcoin here, then we'll quickly jump into Ethereum, then we'll probably kind of go between the two. So here in Bitcoin, we have a couple of interesting things happening. Okay, first we had the big run up to 5,000. That's pretty interesting because generally from a macro perspective, macro meaning big picture perspective, that garnered a lot of headlines worldwide. So we're going to see a bunch of people rushing into the market, going to buy Bitcoin 5,000 before the move is over. Before they miss out on Bitcoin. And happen at 100, 500, 1,000, 3,000. Now it's happening at 5,000. It'll happen again later at 7,500 and 10,000. Okay, it's going to happen again. But for now, we had a bunch of people jump in at Bitcoin 5,000, and that move was promptly sold into, thanks in part to and sponsored by China News on the ICO banning. So if you haven't heard by now, China banned ICOs. I mean, that is a done deal. That is old news at this particular point. China banned ICOs. It caused us a nice little 20% drop in Bitcoin and a little more in Ethereum. and But right after the news, we had a nice little volume pop, and we proceeded to head higher to a little high-level consolidation area, testing this consolidation area right here. Coming up to these moving averages and past them in this case. And then, lo and behold, a couple days later, there was a rumor out of China. Again, a rumor, not a news item, but a rumor that they were going to ban exchanges in cryptocurrencies, which is a different bit of a ball game because banning ICOs is only going to stop coins from being issued. It's not, it's still going to allow trading to ensue. It's going to keep the market liquid. Maybe it takes out a few, players here and there, but you're still going to be able to trade, but maybe not so much now if they actually ban exchanges. So since then we dropped down, we sold off again, we've kind of retested prior lows, and now we're just kind of chopping around here in lower volume, just kind of waiting to see if there's going to be another shoe to drop, what's going to happen next in the news. So you can see how the price action has been following the news, and in some cases the price action can kind of lead the news. And I think the reason why that happens is basically due to market manipulation by insiders that kind of know what's going to happen before it does. So what you could be seeing here is you could be seeing some biggies in China distributing some positions before they go ahead and actually just, bring their news out and let the market tank. Okay, so that's a scenario for a downside, for a downside move in Bitcoin. And so I'm just gonna stick with the downside action for the moment. That does look like it is what's most on the cards for the near to intermediate term future. We're gonna stick with that. Option number 2, at least for me personally, I have this red and this blue line drawn on my chart. These are moving averages. I have the 30 and 70 EMA here. 30 stands for a month, 70 stands for a little more than 2 months. And if you notice, right now these two EMAs are tangling. They're kind of intermingling right here. That actually hasn't happened on this entire run up. I mean, they crossed here, and past that, they really haven't touched since. So definitely some of the momentum, some of the wind has gone out of the sails of Bitcoin. The last time we see it is actually over here. So we actually see, even during this big run up, we don't see these moving averages really tangle at all until we have over here, we have them mingle a little bit. And even over here, they mingle a little bit. So this is the first time really since this base that this is really kind of, these moving averages have intermingled. So the fact that they are so close means we could go in either direction, but they are pointing down. So maybe if we get another week or so, this could be flattening out sideways, something like this action. But I mean, this is really a news-driven event up here. This is really news-driven, and if we get bad news, we're going to go down. If we get no news, I think we're still gonna chop around a little bit. We're gonna sit between this high and this low, and I think we're just gonna kind of chop around with some indecisive action. So that's what kind of looks like the chart is saying here at this particular point in time. There's not a lot of, there's kind of a market consensus that 4,300, at least in this moment in time, is a pretty good price for Bitcoin. There's not a lot of buying, there's not a lot of selling. So from a technical perspective, we're kind of at an equilibrium, which is really boring. And, some of you guys are going to get literally bored. You're going to get bored trading Bitcoin. You're going to lose sight of it. You're going to maybe trade in and out at some inopportune moments. This is kind of called the choppy market, or we're trendless and we're just kind of floating around. So be aware of that. Maybe this is something you want to, if you have a position, don't sell. If you don't have a position, don't buy. You just kind of want to let things play out and just kind of stand on the sidelines. So to the upside, as far as upside in Bitcoin, there's actually not a really big bull case at the moment. The biggest bull case you could have right now is that no news is good news, and we just get some nice market action. People start to buy again. The news kind of fades away in their memory, and then we start to curl back upwards. Could we get some really good news, some catalyst to bring us up? Yes, but no one can forecast that, and so we're just going to kind of have to wait and see on that notion. So the bear case, at least for the intermediate term future, meaning a couple of weeks or so, is looking pretty strong, and the bull case is not looking so strong. So that's kind of what we're seeing in the Bitcoin chart here. So that's just general market action as far as technical levels go. Like I said, we're looking at maybe chopping between 47 and 3,900, maybe 4,000, and just kind of hanging out. We'll see how the price action intermingles with the moving averages, see if those want to hold up, or if those want to push the price down. If these push the price down, that's actually pretty bearish. So if we do go down, what are some levels we could hit? Well, overall, I would say this is the longest term level down, about 40% to 3,000. I don't think it's going to get that low, although if we do get a market crack, if China does actually ban exchanges, we definitely could see some panic selling into this 3,000, and that would be a really, really cool area to buy, unless it just wasn't. I mean, so this is the thing, right? When you get these big sell-offs that happen, if you look at this just as an example, what tends to happen is we kind of chop around a little bit, go sideways, and then maybe we crack all the way down. You want to look for some good volume down here at these bottoming. So let's zoom in here, take a nice look at this chart at this bottom. If we do get a big crack to the downside, what's that going to look like? Well, you can just look back in history and kind of see what it has looked like, and that may be what it's going to look like in the future. So if you think about it, right now we kind of had a similar thing, right? We have a crack, a consolidation, a further breakdown. We came up and tested over here, we rolled over, and now we're kind of stuck in this type of a pattern, maybe something like this area at the moment, where we tested the low, it held, we never really got back to this high, and we just had a series of higher highs and lower lows, and then eventually it broke down over here to the downside, had some acceleration. Right over here the volume increased. If we notice, this volume was very low, indicating that there was an equilibrium between buyers and sellers. Moving averages are converging. So again, more convergence, more equilibrium. We're a trendless market. We're in a choppy market. This is a market where you don't get involved and where you really just kind of want to sit If you're a long-term holder, then maybe these spike downs are areas that you can go ahead and pick up a half a Bitcoin or a Bitcoin or whatever your position size is. It's okay to do that. But as far as trading goes, unless you're really active and on the spot, Johnny on the spot, a lot of these trends tend to happen in China midnight, 11, 10, midnight. I mean, this happened at, it looks like this one happened at about noon or so. So, you know, China tends to be very active. U.S. tends to be very active. You really need to pick your spots if you're going to be trading this actively. And it's going to be tough. But when we do break to the downside or the upside, if we break to the downside, this could be a model, right? We break down to a prior support area. We bounce up. We fail, maybe at a moving average, maybe not. Maybe it's a prior level of support that is now resistance, and then we break down again. We look for higher volume pops. We look for large candles to the downside, large bars to the downside. We look for high volume without further price progress down, and you start nibbling here. And then as you see some increase, then maybe you get a little bit more aggressive, and then we just hopefully ride it up. It's hard to say if this bar is the if this volume bar is the bottom, if this volume bar is the bottom. It's really hard to tell that. You just kind of have to start nibbling at it. You can nibble at it on the way down, take a 10% position, 10% position, 10% position, and with the understanding that eventually we're going to go ahead and hold. And actually here we did hold at this prior low. So even though this was kind of choppy action, we did hold at a prior low, and maybe we end up with something like that over here. Maybe we get down to this level, to the 3600 low. Maybe we chop around, spike down here, and this would be a great area to pick up some Bitcoin for long and for short term. That would just be a good trade. Say you hold this and we pop back up to this high, that's a 25% move. So long or short term, you can't really be upset with that type of action. So if we do get a move to the downside, that is a good thing, because as we all know, Bitcoin is long-term bullish. So I really wouldn't be upset or surprised if we move down. I wouldn't be panicking. I would be prepared for this. If you're a long-term holder, maybe this doesn't scare you. If it doesn't scare you, that's great. Hold on to it. If that would scare you, then maybe you think about taking some off the table. If you don't want to lose all exposure, you can take half of your position off the table. Whatever you're comfortable with, whatever lets you sleep through China if you're in the U.S., or whatever lets you sleep through the U.S. if you're in China, whatever gets you through the night, that's what you need to do. But keep in mind, keep the price action in mind, because that can kind of tell you how we're doing. If we get some really accelerated volume to the downside and we do spike all the way down here, be prepared for that as well. The 3,000 from 3,600, that may be, that could be in the cards. We'll just have to wait and see if it breaks down and how it breaks down. So going to Ethereum, that was kind of a long synopsis on Bitcoin, but jumping over to Ethereum here, if my chart will do it. So if you've been watching the channel, you've already seen my head and shoulders here. If you're new to the channel, thank you for watching, number one. Number two, Ethereum has a large topping pattern called a head and shoulders, which is indicated by a high and another high, and then a lower high on the right side. And typically the shoulders should be at about the same level, and these are at the same level. And you can actually derive a target from the head and shoulders pattern, which is where you draw a line here from the peaks down in between the shoulders and the head, and this is your breakdown bar. Essentially, this is your support bar. And if and when this gets broken, you can derive a target of the height between the head and the support bar in the neck. So this is that level. That's why I drew the circle down here. I was thinking it would take some time for it to maybe chop around, and maybe we get some news. If we get that big news out of China, then this could be a potential target. If you notice, this actually, this level coincides with these support areas down here, and that could put us in for a longer term downtrend. So I'm not going to dig into that too far. I don't want to scare people. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to give you scenarios that could play out. Now, again, if you're a longer term holder in Ethereum, if you've been in here from, down here, sub $100 level, obviously you believe in the coin and the technology, this type of move may not scare you. And that's fine. Hold it. No problem with that. I don't think everyone needs to sell. Everyone's strategy is their own. And whatever you're comfortable with, I'm comfortable with. So, whatever that means. Whatever that means. But anyway, so the same case for Ethereum kind of bodes for Bitcoin. The charts are different, but the sentiment at this point is the same. Ethereum has a harder case to the downside than Bitcoin does, and I would think if the China case plays out, that actually makes sense because Bitcoin is not really affected too much in terms of ICOs and in terms of markets breaking down. Bitcoin is a worldwide phenomenon that's been used for 7 years now, 6 years now, 5 years now, probably more widely, and it's going to continue to be used as it gets adopted by governments. It's like every month a government is accepting Bitcoin. Ethereum, on the other hand, is a platform, and ICOs are built around Ethereum. So banning ICOs in China will hurt Ethereum a little bit, but banning the trading of those ICOs and of coins based around Ethereum could hurt Ethereum quite a bit. So I could foresee a situation where Bitcoin actually sells off and then consolidates and then heads higher with a higher low, where Ethereum could actually have a case of a kind of like we saw, but 2000, 2002, 2008, 2009, 2015 scenario. I'm talking about the U.S. stock market where we chop around these wide levels and then we eventually break out to the upside with a lot of gusto. And if you're an investor in the U.S. stock market, we're in that right now. So we broke out in 2015, I think it was, and we're going to be breaking out for the next 10 years. That's my opinion, and I'm investing that way. Anyway, so Ethereum does have a case to the downside via this head and shoulders pattern all the way down here. I can't say it's going to happen. We can just read the charts and ascertain what is a possibility. And you have to view that as a possibility. I mean, if you look at it right now, you could be saying, well, hey, you're talking about this while it's curling up right here. It is, but it's curling up on lighter volume. None of this volume in here has been really nothing to write home about, except for these large down bars. These large down bars have been significant in range and in volume. So that could be something. So there you go. Long story short, we're looking for news out of China either to come out or to not come out, and that is going to drive these markets lower, or we're going to end up chopping around these areas and then probably eventually maybe have a spike down just to shake some people out and scare some people, then head higher. So is Bitcoin done for now? I would say it is definitely not done, but done for now. I would say just hold on to your positions, whatever they may be, and I wouldn't get too aggressive in either direction. So there you go. There's Bitcoin and Ethereum. And any questions, comments, I'll be happy to answer. If you want to get into a debate about technical analysis and long-term holding, I'll be happy to debate that with you as well. And there you go. Have a good day.